Yeah, yeah.
Oh, great. How you doing?
I had to mute. Oh, good, good. I had to mute the YouTube thing. Otherwise, we'll be hearing ourselves.
Yeah, we don't
I
want
hear
none of
myself
that.
enough already with all the videos I do. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that
Sorry
was an
about
actual
that.
channel. So
Yeah, you probably were the subject of one of my quick responses as I was going through things to respond to. Usually, I just kind of do a jaded comment, then I go to the next video to find if I can do anything with it. So
yeah,
you were subject to one of my quick off the cuff jade remarks, more than likely.
yeah. Well, I'm glad we could come together and have this conversation.
Yeah,
Um, Even if it
right.
doesn't go
Um,
far anywhere, I at least want to have a conversation. As far as your questions and concerns
oh
go,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it'd be good to kind of cover
Yeah, I
those.
forget. I don't even know what. Oh my goodness. Yeah, a lot of argument, a lot of videos rather. So yeah, I mean, I didn't. For that one video, I think that you were. It was a part two, maybe,
Yeah.
because you didn't have. You listed some arguments, but you didn't have those arguments, so there wasn't anything I could do with it really.
Yeah, as far as the one that you first commented on, this is actually a continuation of what I have been making as far as my shorts. These are not full in depth
Right,
put
right,
together
right.
arguments in one whole video.
Yeah,
This is just part of my short series that I've been putting together. I've started with the cosmological argument, the teleological, the argument for morality,
right.
and I've gone all the way up to, that video as well, theism versus non-theism. So it's a continuation of uh
Yeah.
a series that I've been putting together. But
Right. Yeah. See, I didn't. Yeah, because there was nothing in the description
yep.
to let me know that. Otherwise, I would. You were. But yeah, I've. Okay. So I had heard what you commented on before I got here. I guess we could. Well, I don't know where you want to start. Uh, it's your thing. You know, however you want to do this. I'm
Personally,
deconverted, man. I'll start there.
yeah, yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself, because I want to know who I'm talking to in the first place. So I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, I've been on you. I'm. I go by the avatar name Deconverted Man, or my fake internet name Dan Green, which is also my pen name now.
Yeah.
I have a book that I wrote about my deconversion. To shamelessly plug myself, a cop between an infinite hope and a finite despair. It's on Amazon.
Okay.
Low price of $18. I only get $6 for repurchase, so I'm not getting rich off of it. But,
What is it called? I would like
uh,
to check it out if you did not
cop,
mind.
cop between an infinite hope and a finite despair. And yeah, I was a Christian for quite a while, and I deconverted and been a skeptic for 10, 11, some odd plus years now.
Okay.
Kind of lost track.
Yeah.
But I call myself a skeptic. That label seems to work fairly well for describing my position on things, broadly speaking, although, of course, the labels can get confounding and confusing at times, but, we try to, label ourselves in some way to kind of shortcut things, but who knows whether that makes things more complicated than not. It's like you say, I'm a Christian. It's like, oh yeah, which version?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
well, I'm a Baptist. Are you Southern Baptist or regular Baptist?
I hear you.
So but at any rate, I learned and have learned and continue to learn informal logic and formal logic, which is the study of argumentations and logical fallacies,
Mm-hmm.
and um, how to identify those, and how to make an argument valid and sound. And so, primarily on my channel, I point out bad argument or point out fallacies in arguments. Although I've kind of shifted a little bit now, I kind of just react to stuff a little. Well, not react, but just kind of off the cuff live responses to things that I do now. But, it just depends what it is. I'll go back and forth. And but my primary thing is I want people to learn logic. A lot of the apologetic types out there, and I don't know that you're one, but it's been my experience that many have they've learned the argument, but they do not know logic. And so you're presenting something, you have no idea what the mechanics of this thing is. So I find that to be a problem. It's like, look, you're using this argument, you have no idea why what you're saying is wrong. And so even if I point out the fallacies, it's like it doesn't do any good because, it's kind of like, okay, I can teach you the rules of chess, but I can't. But you've got to learn the strategy of chess. You can't, otherwise you're not going to beat the grandmaster. Know.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I'm not sure that analogy is that good, but
no, it definitely makes sense with what you're saying. So.
Yeah, so with the cosmological, of course, there's several versions of it. Yeah. From St. Augustine to good old William Lane Craig. And, there's many fallacies, depending on, which one you use. Some have less than others. The hypothetical ones tend to have far less, or even just one.
Long cosmological argument.
Right. Yeah, that's me. That's me in the background complaining about the clone.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I had your channel pulled up so I can, check you out whenever I get the chance. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So with depending on the version of the cosmological argument you use, of course, the fallacies are going to change. But essentially, most of them rely upon observational information we have access to. And that then leads into what's called a deductive argument. And deductive arguments can be useful. They can get us to a lot of true conclusions, but they don't always... What was that word? They don't always work because reality sometimes doesn't do what we would expect. So you wouldn't be able to use a deductive argument to get to the theory of atomic, structures or molecules, or it's just unsuitable for that. So there's many things in science, in reality, I should say, that we learn through science, that we couldn't ever use deductive reasoning to get us to. One example I use for my own thought process was there somebody stretched out a slinky and they drop it in and then you see it in slow motion and you're asked, well, what's the slinky gonna do? And I thought, when I watched the video, I'm like, well, obviously it's just gonna go crashing into the ground. Well, that's not what happens. The slinky collapses into itself and then it falls to the ground. And it's like, wait a minute, it's hovering. There's a whole reason behind that and all that.
Yeah.
But deductive reasoning alone wouldn't have gotten me to know the conclusion. So these arguments just do not work in regards to cosmology because you're attempting to apply what we observe today to the past. And in the distant past, physics, when you're talking about near the big expansion, when you're talking about the T1 event of cosmology, which is the first moment of time as we understand it, that universe was very different from this universe. It's very hot, about, 10 to the power of some odd, crazy number degrees Kelvin. And so physics is just different than what we have now. So we do not know how that works. The math breaks down, our understanding breaks down, and I'm talking people that know math, and like I don't know, because I don't, I look at those symbols and I go, what is that? You see those mathematical symbols, and it's like, what are you talking? What is that?
Yep.
And so if you say, okay, well, cause and effect, that's something we observe. So it seems to be that could go backwards infinitely. Well, the problem is when you get to this different universe, this different type of universe than what we're used to, there's no reason to think that cause and effect is still going on. Maybe it is, but you don't know that it is because you don't know what the physics of that universe are like. And so without a model, you can't just assert that you want something to be true or that you think it's true, because your logic was great up to this point, and now we're entering the realm of unknown. So we don't know what that realm is like, so we can't really discuss that realm. So that's the major failing of cosmological arguments, broadly speaking.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the other ones you brought up were now, but I think did you say moral and...
the argument for morality and the teleological argument, the argument for design.
Okay, teleological.
Yeah.
Teleological one, appearance of design doesn't mean design, basically. The problem with this is that we're pattern-seeking creatures. We see patterns even when there aren't one. Like, there was that photo of the face on Mars, and it was just a close-up of a rock, and when you pull back, it doesn't look like a face, And we're really good at finding faces. We're really good at that. There's a rock that looks like a Native American head that was just carved by nature. No person did it. It's like, well, it looks like a Native American. It looks like someone could have sculpted it, but nobody did. But we just see that because that's what, we're good at identifying faces of humans, which is probably why there's more human ghost sightings than there are of any animal sightings at all, because we'll see a human face. We'll never see, or we'll rarely see an animal face. So that's why people say they see human ghosts, and they don't see, cats or whatever. Of course, they're not seeing ghosts at all. They're just seeing, what they think is a person. So that's the problem with the teleological, is just an appearance of design doesn't necessarily mean design. And then with the moral argument, there's many, many problems with that, but essentially boils down to association causation. You would have to show a linkage between there being an objective moral thing that you would also have to prove, and that meaning that there's a deity that makes that into a reality. And you're getting into Platonism, Plato's ideas, Platonism as it's called. You're getting into all sorts of weird philosophical territory there, which, it can be a real problem, but for logic itself, it's just, the fallacy usually is association causation, although there can be other fallacies depending on the structure of the argument. But again, I'm just speaking broadly.
Okay. Was there anything else you wanted to add? Sorry.
No, I think I said a lot of things, so I want to give you a chance to respond to any or all of that.
I got my notebook over there. Okay.
Huh?
No, I was just having my little brother get my notebook. Because if I'm...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so...
Go back and record everything I just said.
Oh, no, I make sure that...
Yeah, I know, I just rattled that all out.
So.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. I'll repeat anything you need or whatever, yeah.
No, you're okay. So, now, I'm just going to introduce myself, and then I also want to respond to every argument that we just pretty much were talking about. So, I'm a Christian, born-again Christian. I believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I gave my life to Christ January 28th of 2020. And I've always believed that God existed. I've always had that belief, growing up. It wasn't just because my mom told me or people were it's just I just knew intuitively that there is a being beyond us, based off of creation, based off of what is visible to my eyes and what I've experienced throughout my life, and the fact that humans in itself are so different from anything else in the world. I feel that humans have purpose. We have a specific purpose, and I believe that that is God-given. So I've always believed that God existed. I just never really knew God. I never really gave my life to God. But of course, like I just mentioned, January 28th of 2020, I took the step of giving my life to Christ. believing that he died for me, for my sins and everything. So during my journey, I've decided to study apologetics because even though I know God exists, I kind of want to know more. Like I want to really know that God exists. I want to have a better understanding of the creation of the universe, the design of the universe, moral accountability. I wanted to understand and have the complete picture that there is a God out there, that I'm not just believing something just to believe it. So me being very honest with myself, decided to go through all these studies and researches, and it's actually built my faith a lot more, especially hearing atheistic arguments against the evidence that are presented. I mean, I feel that even atheism has even moved me closer to knowing that God exists based off of just... Oh, did something happen? Oh, you sent me some... Oh, okay, okay.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Based off of just the arguments that even atheism, presents, it kind of just moves me even closer to God, because one, when they say something about God and has me question, then I look into that question, I do my own research, and then I discover that, oh, so this is a great argument against what the atheist just presented. And then the atheist really has no response to that. And all of their responses, from what I've experienced so far, is really just based off of emotion. Everything's just based off of emotion. It's more of just like, I don't believe in God because I just don't want to. I don't want moral accountability. I don't care about none of that. And the fact that atheists even take the position of trying to argue against God just shows that God exists. Because if he didn't, and atheists really truly believe that, then there's no point in arguing against a non-existent being. If God doesn't exist and that's the truth and that's it, who cares what I believe? Who cares what the next person believes? Nobody takes the time to argue against aliens or Bigfoot or mermaids. Like, we don't do none of that. But when it comes to God, there's like a very strong conviction in the atheist heart that kind of moves them to try to argue against it. But that's kind of like, what I do, and this is why I provide evidence for, theism and the historicity of Jesus Christ and the reliability of the New Testament. Because if Jesus rose from the dead, then not only does God exist, but Christianity is true, regardless of whether we like it or not. If Jesus actually rose from the dead, Christianity is true. So yeah, I just decided to kind of pick up that interest in not only just believing, but also knowing, because there's a difference between believing and knowing. Believing something to be true without knowing that it's true, or knowing something to be true but not believing, not believing in it, not putting your trust in it. So I decided to not only trust in my Savior, but also to do the historical research and studies of that background of, what really happened historically. How reliable is the New Testament? What were these disciples doing when they wrote down the New Testament? Why did they write it? And well, it seems to show that it's very reliable. But now, as far as the cosmological argument, I kind of wanted to give you my study and understanding of it. So I do believe in the column cosmological, the William Lane Craig, which is the whatever begins. Go ahead. I'll let you say something.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I wanted to, if I could, respond to one point you made there.
Go ahead.
Why atheists argue against God? Okay, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you mentioned aliens. Actually, there are people that argue against aliens. It's not that often we need to, but there are. It does come up because people believe that happened. Bigfoot, there are people that argue against that, and other cryptozoology creatures, or was it cryptozoology or something like that? I forget what it's called, but there are those arguments. They don't happen as often though, because not that many people believe in that. There's also arguments against flat Earth, which unfortunately a number of people believe that the Earth is flat. So those arguments are made. So it doesn't, just because people are arguing against something more often than not, doesn't mean that thing therefore is true. If a significant amount of the population all agreed that the Earth was flat, that wouldn't make the Earth flat. And if some people were saying, look, we need to argue against these people, and we're going to, and we do, that wouldn't therefore mean that they secretly believe the Earth is flat, or that they're in their hearts they're angry that the Earth is flat, or whatever. All it would mean is that people are believing something that responding to that. What would be worse is, imagine if you would, I'm assuming you don't believe the Earth is flat, is that, am I right in that?
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay, good. Thank goodness. I was like, oh no. But imagine if you would that I'm in the USA, I'm assuming you're in the USA, that 98% of the population believed the Earth was flat.
Yep.
The two of us were among those who didn't. And
go ahead. Hello?
yeah, I just heard there was things going on in the background. I wanted to wait for that.
Yeah, sorry. Let me I'm gonna change my location real quick. 1 second. Jenny, can you grab my notebook? Just changing location here real quick.
Okay.
All right, you can continue.
Okay, so, if it's, let's say, what did I say, 98% of the USA believed the world was flat, and you and I didn't. And they were voting in policies that were based on this belief that the world was flat, that they were arguing that the Earth being flat needed to be taught in the schools. They were making legislation about it. They were preaching it on street corners. Would you be content to just sit back and let them say what's untrue, or would you want to speak against it?
Well, that depends, because my motive would be an objective standard, which would be God. It would have to come from objectivity. So, like, if there's purpose in this universe and God exists, then there's reason and purpose to make sure that the truth is told, and that the truth is, and that the lies are corrected. So yes, it would have to come based off of purpose and reason and a motivation. That only comes if God exists, because if God doesn't exist, then it really doesn't matter what anybody believes. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. There's no purpose. We live in a purposeless universe, so it just wouldn't matter.
So the answer is yes. If we were in such a reality, you would be compelled, for whatever reason, you would be compelled to speak out against it. So that is essentially why many atheists speak out against religion and or God. The belief in general, broadly speaking, is because a significant amount of the population believe in different versions of a God, and sadly, people don't keep their religion out of politics. So when that happens, both secular and non-secular theists, that is, do join in and fight for separation of church and state. But sadly, there are the evangelicals that want creationism taught in schools, or don't like biological evolution or what have you. And that holds back America in being a leader of progress, and affects a lot of things, because when you teach things that aren't so, it's going to affect your ability to compete in the real world. So that's one reason why many atheists speak out about religion, and is because they see that people with those beliefs can and do vote for things that make the world slightly worse.
Can I
And
ask?
that's true. That's true whether there's a deity or not, because the world, as we understand it, can be better than it is, whether there's a God or not, right?
Well, that would beg the question. What do you mean by better, and why would it be wrong?
No, I wouldn't beg the question. Begging the question would be if I said, well, you know, that's the wrong fallacy at any rate. I'm trying to rephrase it so that it would be that fallacy, but I can't. Better. I would hope we both understand better. I mean that people do less harm to each other, for example. That we commit less knifings than we do, or something. That we help each other out more often, or say hi and wave and be friendly. Something like that.
I agree with you. That
even
those are.
if there's no.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
I just wanted to ask a question, because I agree with you. I would want the world to be better, and for us to wave hi and handshake each other, for us, for a community to come together and not have killings and murders and rape cases, like all these things. Like I agree with you. The world should be better in that case, but from I would assume atheistic or agnostic position, I would have to ask, why is that good? If there is no God or standard beyond humanity, why does that matter? Why does it matter that we need to have a better life or say hi to people? Or if we're all just overgrown molecules from an explosion and there is no being beyond us, there is no moral accountability, there is no heaven or hell, why does it matter?
Because we matter to each other.
But why though? Why do we matter to each other?
Because we have empathy.
But where do we get that empathy from?
Broadly speaking, biological evolution.
So if it's all based on biology and evolution, who's to say Hitler's wrong for what he did? Because what if that was just a process of evolution? And it's not his fault, but it's his DNA's fault. It's whatever molecular process that was going on in his body. Who's to say that he was wrong for that? Or who's to say that anybody's wrong if their process of evolution takes them in a direction that causes them to want to rape people or kill people? Who's to say they're wrong for that? What standard are you taking from to say that?
Well, to identify where a thing is from is different from asking questions of ethics and morals. Ethics and morals evolved with humanity as we evolved from the simpler creatures that we were into what we are now. And so to understand the basics of what we are molecules, yes, but we're more than that. We're more than the sum of our parts. Just like a computer is a bunch of wires. Well, yeah, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's a bunch of wires, yes, but once they're put all together in a certain way, they become more than the sum of their parts. It's called an emergent property. So the emergent property that we humans have is far more than the sum of our parts. And we can recognize where and how these things came about, but that's different than asking the questions of ethics. What ethical system should we utilize? And there's several to choose from. What morals will point to the outcome of those ethics? How do we know X person was, quote, wrong? Well, if you have to decide what your grounding will be in ethics. And if the grounding is harm, that harm is bad, and we can define harm in a very objective way. We could say it's things that we can observe what harm is. You cut somebody's hand. Well, you've harmed them because you didn't have any reason to cut their hand. There was no surgery involved. It's just you did it because it was there to do. You've opened that wound. You've introduced possible, bacteria. You've caused them mental and physical stress, and you did it just because you could. That's not a good enough reason. It's not beneficial to that individual, nor is it beneficial to society as a whole. So you can base things off of the objective standard of harm. Now, you might say, well, that's all fine and good, but subjectively we had to pick that harm was the thing to base things off. Well, yeah, I guess, but it's a good place to start. I don't know what else you might pick something else. But what you see is when you look at history, you can see what societies have thrived and succeeded and what ones have failed. So you don't want to copy a society that's failed. That would be madness. Your society is doomed to fail if you do the same thing they did. The Aztecs didn't last. Why? Well, many reasons, but it may be cutting off heads for sacrifices to deities was part of why they failed as a society, so maybe it's a good idea to not do that. For Hitler, we can see that if he had succeeded, his society would have collapsed. The moment that C-19 hit, the moment that the pandemic that we have right now hit, everybody would have been wiped out. There would be nobody left. Because the thing with biodiversity is that we have different ways that the virus has to attack us. With Hitler's idea of the one race society, a single virus can wipe all that out instantly. So that society would not have thrived, and we know that. So we can say, well, objectively speaking, based on the fact that the society needs to survive, his society wouldn't have worked. So it's wrong in that sense. And at no point do we need to bring in divine command theory into it, which is what we're talking about with to do with deities. And of course, there's other problems with divine command theory, but that I think that responds to that those questions.
Okay, because I'm being open, and listen, if God doesn't exist, and you can provide me at least a good enough argument for that, which this conversation would be to help in that case, I'd want to know. But it still doesn't satisfy me, because you're using words like progression, good, better, but I want to know, what are you using to compare to say that this life is better or this way is better and this is the wrong way? Why is killing if somebody wants to get their way, or stealing if somebody wants to get their way, wrong objectively by what standard? Like, what is the standard that says that this is objectively wrong? Because if you look at it as evolution can turn its way tremendously. We could say 10 years from now, killing may be good. We may progress, if you want to call it that, in a way that kind of turns humans into saying, you know what, maybe survival of the fittest is the best way to actually progress. Get rid of the weaker and let us build up the stronger. Why? I want to understand, where's the standard coming from?
Well, it's coming from us.
But why are we correct?
That's where the standard. Well, we aren't sometimes.
No,
sometimes
how can we
know?
Let me rephrase that. How can we know objectively that whatever we feel or we think is correct is truly correct, and it is objective that this is the way to go? This is objectively true, and this is how we should live our life, regardless of, oh, well, this person may not like it this way because they feel pain, or we shouldn't kill because it looks bad in our eyes. Well, how do we know what's right and wrong? How do we know what's bad and good?
As I said, you have to pick the grounding for the ethics. So if you select harm as the grounding, and then you define harm out, which I think can be done reasonably so that we're not confused. Like, oh, what do you mean by harm? It's like, come on, we know what harm is. It's when you do something that causes damage that you could have avoided doing. So I use the example of cutting somebody's hand with a knife, or it's like, okay, well, why did you do it? Just because there wasn't. It's like, it's different if I'm cutting with a scalpel in order to remove something from their hand that shouldn't be there. The two are very different. We recognize that. So causing harm, if that is the thing, we say, okay, that's the first rule. We don't want to do harm. Then you build from there, aiming at the goal of avoiding harm, whether it's to people, the environment, the world, etc. And so you then have objective ideas based on that goal. The goal itself, fair enough, you could say, well, that was subjective. We could have picked do harm instead. Well, yeah, you can pick that. It's not going to work out very well because you yourself won't last that long. We know this from history. We can observe, we can look through history and see what happened to civilizations that tried might and tried to rule with conquest. They failed over and over again. It was tried many times and ultimately failed. Survival of the fittest doesn't work in the long term. It can work for a while, but not forever. And so societies over time change to get rid of the idea, to some extent, of survival of the fittest, although you could argue maybe it's still there in economics or something. I don't know. Yeah. But you do have to pick what you want the goal to be. And so for me, I say, well, let's make it be not doing harm. That seems something that I would hope people could agree upon. I don't know that they will or won't, but I think it's a good goal to go towards. Whether or not they'll agree is another matter, but it works, and then we'll flesh out the rest from that. And we're going to make mistakes undoubtedly, because you might do something that is to your best intentions to prevent harm, but wind up causing more harm, and you don't know because you're a limited being. But we have to do what we can in that moment, because that moment might be all we get. So it's better to try to prevent the harm, because we know what inflicting harm will do. We know that will set off a chain of causal events that we can see from the past, and see from that will lead to a negative outcome that will end civilization, or end yourself at any rate, if nothing else. So so you can frame it that way. And as I said, there's several different ethical systems that broaden the scope of how to look at that simplistic idea that I laid out, that are available to choose from. And you can look at those different ethical systems and go, okay, I kind of like this, I kind of like that, and then you say, okay, well, what are my morals going to be in reference to this ethical system? I have the rule book. Now, how do I play the game? How do I enact the strategy? And it's kind of like chess. We humans invented chess. The way that we play chess is pretty much agreed upon worldwide. And so if you break the rules of chess, well, then you're out of the game. And so it doesn't matter that we humans made up the rules. The rules are the rules. And so in the same way, I think that we could say, well, if we invented ethics, then if you break those rules, which are the morals, you're not playing the game. You're out of the game. You're a cheater. We don't want you doing that. And we got to stop you. Whether that's imprisonment or death or some other thing, changing your mind about it, whatever we got to do. But, we want you to play the same game we're all playing. And, so I suppose we humans are still debating about whether we're playing chess or checkers at the moment. And who knows how long that debate will go. But, it's arguing that, chess doesn't matter because it wasn't made by something that's not human. It's like, no. It still matters. The rules are still the rules.
Yeah. And believe it or not, I do agree with everything that you are saying. Because everything that you're saying is true.
I do agree
It is,
with
sorry, 1 second. Okay, everything you're saying
Whoopsies.
is true. Yeah, that's myself. It is, everything that you're stating is true, is objectively true. It is the truth. We should not harm people. And it's just a beautiful thing hearing it from you as somebody who's in the position of not believing God, because I believe you are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God. And you show that just by the fact that that it's objectively wrong to hurt people or harm people. That we should progress as a society, and that just shows me that you have characteristics of God. The moral standard is written in your heart, and that it's objectively wrong for some things and it's objectively right for other things. But my only issue is that from an atheistic perspective, I need to understand, not based off of what society has established or has ordained, but I need to understand where do we start and begin to say that, okay, let us come together. We need to come together and we need to state some laws, because these things are wrong. We shouldn't be harming each other. We shouldn't be killing each other. By what standard, even by the beginning of that, if the laws were going to be established by just human beings, what gives them the right to stop others who want to inflict harm and damage upon other people? If God doesn't exist and there is no standard beyond humanity, and there's a community that wants to harm and murder because they feel that they will progress as a society, and others don't want to harm and inflict pain because they feel that they will progress, how can we justify a position that is being taken by saying that, okay, what your group is doing is objectively wrong, we should not be doing it because we need to progress as a community, but then the other community is saying, no, but I feel that you guys are being too soft and we need to get rid of the weaker people and we need to progress as a society together as the strong people? How can we justify that we're the people who want to progress by not harming people are correct and the other people who inflict damage and want to harm people is wrong? What standard? Because like I said, if there is no God, then it doesn't matter whether or not Hitler's community wanted to do what they did to gain power and progress versus Mother Teresa, for example, who wanted to serve others and treat others with respect and help others to progress. How can we really, where do we draw the line and say, well, okay, well, this is the objective moral standard, and there's nothing that can go against that because this is objectively wrong?
Right. Well, I as I said, I think you're asking essentially the same question, and as I said, you as an individual and we as a society have to decide the thing that we're going to base the ethics and morals on. I say ethics because ethics, I view ethics as the rules, the goals, and then the morals are the strategy to get to the goal. Okay, so you have to select whatever it is, and I say harm. Now somebody else might not. Fair enough. Well, okay, so if we go with what they do and go, okay, well, kill whoever I want. Okay, well, that's great. I'll kill you. How about that? Well, no. I don't want to die. Well, I know, but you said kill whoever I want, so, I mean, it's not going to work out very well, right? It's like, well, everybody but me is subject to my whim. Yeah, well, that's not going to work out very well for you. The rest of the people aren't going to agree. So, let me cover a few things, because I don't want to, like I said, I think I already answered the question, but I do want to touch upon a few things you said. You said atheist perspective, and I need to outline there's no such thing as an atheist perspective. Atheism is not a worldview, nor is it a religion. It's simply a description of things. It is the position that there's no God, and or the position that one doesn't believe in God. Both are plausible definitions for that particular word. In either case, there's nothing else that it tells you. Unlike Judaism or Christianity or Buddhism, atheism doesn't have any rules, anything to follow. There's no atheist Bible. So so I just want to clarify that there is no atheist perspective, so to speak. There's my perspective, and I happen to be a skeptic, and because I'm a skeptic, I'm also atheist and agnostic and partially atheist, and who knows what other labels apply to me, but those will be good enough for now, and people will be like, atheist, what's that? Well, now they have to look that up, haha, you know. But at any rate, there's my perspective, and I'm just one guy, and what do I know? I know that I'm a skeptic, which is not my goal. To reference something a while back, seemed like you're like, well, argue that there isn't a God. That's not what I want to do. That's not what I'm about. I don't want anyone to deconvert because I know how painful it was for me. I want them to go on their journey, whatever that journey is. It might lead to deconversion. It might not. I don't know. But I want them to learn logic. That's the main thing. If they can learn logic and use it, maybe they'll make better arguments than what we have, and that will be really great because it'll give me something to do. The arguments that apologists have are broken, and I've shown that they're broken, and others have done that, and it's like, look, come up with new arguments. These don't work. And anyway, so how do we justify X? I think I covered that. Objectively wrong. Right, let's get to the objectively wrong. Okay, so here's this problem. Okay. My God, we'll name him Bob, says that you have to have hats, and anybody without a hat has to die. There's another God, we'll call him Greg, and he says that anyone that has hats must die. So you have two groups of people, let's just say two people for now, make it easy. They both say, look, my God said to kill you because you don't have a hat on. My God said to kill you because you have a hat on. They both think that they're objectively true. Which one's true? Which one's right? We don't know. They both claim that God told them this. We have no proof that God actually told them this. They both reference holy books or scholars or whatever. They both think that they're right. So how do we, outside of that, say, well, look, maybe there's no God that told you to kill the other person at all. That would solve the problem, wouldn't it? But they're like, look, no, listen, if there's no God, then wearing hats is fine, and that's terrible, and I don't like that. My God says to kill hats. My God says not to. And they go to war and they kill each other over it, which religions have done in the past, because they both think that they're right. Which one was right? Maybe they were both wrong.
Still there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Was that did you want me to answer?
Yeah, that was the end of my thought.
Okay. Okay, so
well, I hope that responded to some of the things. So yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring up a few things. So you mentioned two things. You said atheism is not a worldview, but just to word for word go based off of the definition, worldview is a particular philosophy of life or conception of the world. And from my understanding, an atheistic, I guess, perspective or idea is a conception of the world. It's their idea that God does not exist. It is a worldview that God does not exist, or that I don't believe that there is a God. That's a worldview. That's your conception of what you believe to be true. And then you also said it's not perspective, but perspective is also a particular attitude towards a way of regarding something, a point of view. Atheism is just a point of view. Your point of view is that you don't think God exists. That's your point of view. So when I do say things like the atheistic perspective or atheistic worldview, it is applicable. And I just don't think many people, especially atheists, really have, the definitions of these words correctly, or understanding of it. So I can understand, but it is by definition a worldview, because atheism is just the disbelief or lack of belief in God. So whatever that lack may be, it could just be the lack of information. It could be lack of experience. It could be lack of, I guess, motivation to want to believe God, or the lack of belief in moral accountability, which that's a major problem in the atheistic worldview, because they don't want moral accountability. I'm not saying you, but there is atheists out there that don't want to believe God or accept God because they don't want moral accountability, which is not going to turn them away from being held accountable for their morals. But those are two things I wanted to bring up. But again, I know that I keep, oh yeah, that's the other thing. I know that I keep asking the same question. It's because me having an open mind to this conversation and to this topic, I'm trying to grasp an understanding as to why you may say or think that these actions or lifestyles or whatever choices and morality, sets of morality that a community makes is objectively wrong, just because a community says we should stop doing this. I still need to understand, if everything is just an explosion and we are just molecules, that's all we are, bouncing around, and there is no immaterial substance out there. There is no immaterial reality. Everything is just material. Everything's just within our bodies. There's nothing outside of our, outside of the material world. Then I need to understand truly why anything even matters. I need to really understand why anything matters. And that's one of the major reasons why it could be hard to really leave a religion and deconvert. I understand how difficult that may be, because you go from having hope and believing in something and I guess hoping for the afterlife, then come into a worldview that pretty much just says nothing matters. Because that's really what it comes to, is that nothing really matters. Progression doesn't matter. If I become an atheist today,
part of why
go ahead.
Part of why I named my book what I did, I had that view when I was a believer, so I named my book that as a kind of a reference to that idea.
Yeah.
Well, worldview, what that word means and the definition of it, that's a whole kettle of fish. I would say that atheism is part of worldview, but not the entirety of it, because and I know that that's a whole debate. I'm not interested in definitional debates because they don't really go anywhere. That's how I view that word, and you view it differently, and fair enough. And that's we can't really go any further with that, because it's like, okay, we'll call it worldview 1 and worldview 2, and I'll take number 2, whatever, But regardless, whether it's a worldview or not, the thing I'm trying to get at with that is that atheists are kind of like cats. We don't agree on anything. You can't hurt us. Mm-hmm. You can't get us all. It's like you ask one atheist something, you ask a different atheist the same question, you're going to get a completely different answer. And Now, of course, that's somewhat true of religion, but broadly speaking, if you ask a Christian how to, what you need to do to be saved, you're going to get, well, you might get a variety of answers. That might be an interesting study to do, but you'll get fairly similar answers, across the board, I would suspect. But, well, I don't know without the data. But at any rate, you had mentioned we are just X. We are just this. And as I said, we're more than just the sum of our parts. So that's invalid. But this is also an appeal to consequence. If this is true, then bad thing is true. Well, that doesn't negate it. It might very well be true, and oh well, we got to deal with it anyways. That an appeal to consequence doesn't negate the facts. You also mentioned morally accountable. How much good I do in this life, does it matter? I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe that he rose from the dead. I don't believe he's God. I don't believe in God. So, however much good I do, does that matter?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Then it's completely irrelevant whether or not this particular version of God exists in regards to our good behavior. Because it's not about moral accountability. It's about whether or not you believe in Jesus.
Well, that's the addition to that. Without Jesus, you are going to be held morally accountable for your actions. With Jesus, you have pretty much the mercy of God, because moral perfection in the law was
I'm familiar.
Was completed by Jesus Christ, and that's why through Jesus we are able to be made righteous in the eyes of God.
Right.
And
so Hitler was fine as long as he believed in Jesus in the end.
Well, we don't know if he believed in Jesus, but
no, but he was. Doesn't matter.
If he repented right before he died and he accepted Jesus, then yes, he is going to make it happen.
So the idea.
No, I know, but you brought that up because again because intuitively
morals don't matter.
You went to a moral. Real quick. Intuitively, you went to a moral standard there. You asked a question because objectively what Hitler did was wrong. Intuitively what he did was wrong. But then you're saying, well, what if he repented and accepted Jesus? Is he going to be saved? And you think that if he was saved, that's unfair. But by what standard is that unfair? And what standard are you taking from to say that shouldn't be the way that it should be? He killed millions of people. He should go to hell. Well, listen, if God is real, then hell is a real place, and he's going to be punished for everything he did. Which I don't know if he accepted Jesus.
He's not going to be punished for what.
But I don't know if he accepted Jesus. We don't know that. We don't know if he accepted Jesus or not.
That's the point that I'm making. It's not about what you do. It's about what you believe. It's not about what you do. What you do doesn't matter. If you believe the right thing, you're saved. If you don't, you're screwed.
Well, there's a difference.
So there's a
difference between belief that and belief
absolutely no moral accountability under that system.
No,
and what standard do I judge it by?
There's a difference between belief that and belief in.
Is my standard.
Okay.
Which is mine. It reminds me of this movie, Short Circuit. I don't know if you've seen it. Good movie. This robot becomes alive.
Yeah.
Now he has a creator. He knows that, and he meets his creator, and he talks to him. His creator's like, "Hey, this is Dr. Newton Crosby." He says, "You rewired yourself to not kill. Why? Who told you that?" He said, and Johnny 5, the robot, says, "I told me." He doesn't need his creator to tell him that killing is wrong. In fact, his creator told him killing is right. He realized, no, killing is wrong. If the creator tells me to kill somebody, I'm not going to do it because I don't believe it. I'm not going to do what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And this version, this idea of God, is all about belief and not about moral accountability. If you want moral accountability, you need to be a Zoroastrianist. There it matters what you do in life. The more good you do, the closer to the good place you go, the more bad you do.
Mm-hmm.
And it has nothing to do with if you believe in a God or not.
Yeah.
The whole moral accountability thing is completely and utterly irrelevant under Christianity. End of story. Thanks for playing. Good game.
Okay. Well, all right. So I
It
do.
could still be true,
I
but it's not.
I do want to respond to something, and then I want to share something with you. If you're willing to just be open and allowed to receive it. That's if I could just share something with you, and
Is there empirical evidence or a repeatable test for it?
For what I'm about to share for you.
Yeah. Is it
Well,
just your personal life story?
No. This is nothing about my life story. This is just something I want to share with you. But I do want to say that there is a difference between belief that, belief in. So you're saying that there's no dues. We don't have to do anything. Well, in fact, we do. We have to put our faith and trust in Christ. That's taking action in what Christ did. That is doing something. That is, falling onto the mercy seat of God. That's saying, I surrender myself to you. You got to surrender. You have to do something. You don't just be like, okay, well, I believe Jesus died for me and that's it. I could live my life however I want. If you're doing that, you're playing the hypocrite and you're not really saved. Because if you are familiar with Christianity, if you say that you were once a Christian, you know that the Bible says you could tell a man by their fruits. Now, if they're not bearing good fruits, that's going to prove that this person may not even have the Spirit of God within them. They may not even be saved. They may just be playing the hypocrite. They may be like the Pharisees, because even the demons believe God, but they tremble. The demons believe that God exists, but they don't have trust in him. They don't put their faith and trust in him. They're rebellious. But I do want to share something with you. If you're willing to just allow me to do so. I just want to ask you. So let's just say, let's just say God exists. All right, because I don't think you ever really had the understanding of what Christianity truly is, and I just want to do this with you. If you're willing to just
no, stop right there. Stop.
Go ahead.
Stop. Do not tell me that I didn't understand Christianity.
Okay, maybe you did. Maybe you did, but that's why in order for me to understand myself.
Do not try to mind read.
No, maybe you understood. Maybe you understood Christianity. Okay, maybe you understood Christianity.
Not only that, but I probably understand more about it than you do, and I could prove that with a few questions if you want to. But don't do that to me. I haven't done that to you. I'm not pretending to read your...
No, maybe you know a lot about Christianity. Okay, but now you're making assumptions. Realistically, you can't say maybe I know more about it than you because you don't really know me. You don't know how long I've been in Christianity.
Okay,
you don't know how much I know.
When was...
Okay.
the original text of Genesis found? Or at least the latest copy that we found. When was that found? Who found it? And where?
That has nothing to do with Christianity. That has to do with... That's more on the basis of who discovered certain scriptures. That has nothing to do with Christianity. Are you still there?
Name the 12 apostles.
Okay. You're not asking me questions based on Christianity or salvation.
Okay. There you go. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay,
My
so
point's been made.
all right. How about this? If you allow me to share this with you, I'll answer some of your questions. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Irritated after the thing that
No,
you
that's
said,
fine.
though,
Okay,
but,
so listen. Let's respect each other here. Let's just be calm and allow me to just share this with you. Just let me share it with you. Okay.
All right.
I personally just want to know, and just bear with me, please. Bear with me. Let's not get off topic. Okay. So I want to know, how many lies have you told in your life?
It's irrelevant.
No, I'm just asking. How many lies have you told in your life?
I have no idea.
A lot, probably. I have too.
But it's irrelevant. You're doing the Ray. Are you doing the Ray? You're doing the Ray Comfort thing.
I'm doing the biblical way of trying to understand.
You're doing the Ray Comfort thing. I'm not interested.
Ray Comfort didn't write the Bible.
Because it assumes the Bible is true.
Ray Comfort didn't.
He did this whole stick of, have you lied? Have you done this? Have you done that? I'm not interested in that.
Ray Comfort didn't write the Bible. I'm going based off of the Bible.
He made this apologetic, essentially. You're doing his thing.
Ray Comfort didn't create anything. Ray Comfort got everything that he got from the Bible.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but his stick is pre-assumptionalism. It assumes that the Bible is true without showing that the Bible is true. It's circular reasoning. I'm not interested in it. I'm not answering these questions. It's irrelevant, completely and wholly, because you have to prove that the Bible is true first, which you have not done. You cannot do, and you haven't done yet the research. Now, you said that you want to do the history. Well, good. I hope that you do. I don't think that you will, though. When I ask you all the questions, you're like, oh, that has nothing to do with Christianity, right? Come back when you know the answers to those questions. And when you know the archaeology, don't rely on Christian websites, but look actually for the peer-reviewed publications on the archaeology and whatnot. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of research. If you do that, you'll find something amazing, which you don't know right now, but I'll tell you this. You might deconvert like I did, so be careful. But at any rate...
I can't deconvert because I have the Holy Spirit. But... Again, you're assuming something because.
Thanks for no. All right. Now that's another presuppositional thing that keeps your belief intact. What you're doing is because you have cognitive dissonance.
Manifestation here.
You can't think of a moment when you might not believe, so you pretend that I have this thing, so I can never deconvert. Well, if you find out the truth, and the truth is that there is no Holy Spirit, then yes, you will deconvert.
And that's blasphemy.
But good.
Good, okay.
There is no Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is a piece of pile of poo.
Wow.
Whoopie-doo. Doesn't do anything to me.
All right. That was complete blasphemy, so I had to take him off the Discord, so...